Have you ever heard of the smiley face killer? It's a chilling and deeply unsettling concept. An alleged serial killer, or perhaps an organized group of killers targeting young, college-aged men across the United States. These men, described as athletic, popular, and academically successful, after their lives were tragically cut short, their bodies were dumped in rivers or lakes. Nearby, a haunting clue would often emerge: a painted smiley face. This simple yet ominous symbol has become the focal point of the theory, raising questions about whether these deaths are connected by coincidence, a cruel design, or something far darker. Between 1997 and 2008, more than 40 young men's bodies were recovered from waterways in over 25 cities spanning 11 states. The victims were almost always white, college-aged, and last seen leaving bars or parties after heavy drinking. These cases were almost universally ruled accidental drownings by law enforcement. For many, this seemed logical. Alcohol consumption is a well-documented factor in accidental drownings. However, two retired New York City detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, challenged the prevailing narrative. They argued that these deaths weren't accidents, but deliberate, meticulously planned homicides carried out by an individual or a group they dubbed the smiley face killer. Gannon and Duarte's controversial theory posited that these young men shared too many similarities for the deaths to be unrelated. The detectives identified 22 cases that stood out, each exhibiting patterns that suggested foul play. Beyond the shared profiles of the victims, what particularly caught their attention was the appearance of smiley face graffiti near the locations where the bodies were reportedly dumped. In some instances, additional symbols accompanied the faces, including the word sinister, which translates to rattlesnake in some Native American languages. To Gannon and Duarte, the combination of these elements hinted at something far more sinister than tragic misadventures. They speculated that jealousy could have been a motive for the killings, as the victims shared traits like good looks, athleticism, and academic success. The theory first gained public attention following the death of Patrick McNeil in 1997. Patrick, a 20-year-old college student, was last seen leaving a bar in Manhattan. His body was discovered 2 months later, floating in the East River 12 miles from where he was last seen. The circumstances of his death were deeply troubling. An autopsy revealed ligature marks on his neck, suggesting he had been strangled, while fly larvae on his body indicated he had been kept indoors for some time before being placed in the water. Even more perplexing was the condition of his body. Despite being missing for 2 months, there were signs that he had been in the water for less than a day. Another case that fueled the theory was that of Chris Jenkins, a 21-year-old University of Minnesota student. Chris vanished on Halloween night in 2002 after being ejected from a bar in Minneapolis. 4 months later, his body was found encased in ice in the Mississippi River. The position of his body was highly unusual for a drowning victim. He was lying face up with his hands folded across his chest, a posture that seemed deliberate. These details raised suspicions that his death was more than just an accident. Despite these disturbing stories, the smiley face murder theory has faced significant skepticism. Experts and law enforcement agencies have dismissed the theory as lacking in evidence and rooted in speculative connections. A 2010 report from the Center for Homicide Research outlined 18 reasons why the theory was flawed. The report emphasized that smiley face graffiti is one of the most common symbols in urban areas, making its presence near waterways unsurprising. Furthermore, the smiley faces found at the different locations varied widely in style and design, with no consistent pattern linking them. The word Sinsinawa, though mysterious, was noted to appear in graffiti unrelated to these deaths and did not provide concrete evidence of a connection. Critics also pointed out that homicidal drowning is an exceedingly rare method of murder, statistically undermining the likelihood of such a pattern. Even some of the victims' families have expressed doubts about the theory and the intentions of its proponents. While Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte reportedly mortgaged their homes and invested their own money into pursuing this theory, some have accused them of sensationalism. Families have voiced concerns that the theory has brought them false hope and unnecessary distress. Yet, despite the widespread criticism, the theory refuses to fade away. The unsettling idea of an organized group of killers continues to capture the public imagination, particularly when new cases bear surface-level similarities. For instance, the 2015 disappearance and death of Shane Montgomery, a 21-year-old student who vanished after a night out with friends, reignited whispers about the smiley face killer. Shane's body was found weeks later in a river near a tree with smiley face graffiti. Though law enforcement ruled his death an accidental drowning, the circumstances stirred fresh speculation. The lack of conclusive evidence leaves room for interpretation. Could it be that an organized group of killers is preying on vulnerable young men? Or is the smiley face murder theory simply an urban legend, a story of coincidence taken to the extreme? While many experts and families lean toward the latter explanation, the chilling possibility of the former continues to haunt those who hear the story. The smiley face murder theory is one of those unsettling concepts that lingers in the public consciousness, straddling the line between chilling reality and urban legend. It raises uncomfortable questions about the world we live in, forcing us to confront the possibility of a hidden menace operating in plain sight. At its core, the theory is both a captivating mystery and a deeply disturbing prospect, a story that has provoked fear, debate, and curiosity for decades. Whether the smiley face killer is real, a group of coordinated killers, or merely a myth born of coincidence and speculation, the idea itself strikes a nerve in a society already grappling with the unpredictable nature of violence. This theory touches on universal fears: the vulnerability of youth, the dangers lurking in seemingly safe environments, and the randomness of tragedy. For college-aged men, who are typically perceived as strong, independent, and capable, the notion of being preyed upon defies societal expectations. These young men were not in war zones or perilous situations. They were at bars, parties, and campuses, places associated with camaraderie, celebration, and safety. Yet, in these familiar spaces, something sinister may have been at work. The symbolism of the smiley face, which lies at the heart of the theory, adds another layer of unease. This seemingly innocent and universal symbol, often associated with happiness and simplicity, becomes a mocking reminder of the potential cruelty of the world. The smiley face in this context feels like a taunt, a dark joke left behind by someone, or some group, that sees themselves as untouchable. Whether the graffiti is truly connected to the deaths or simply a coincidental presence, its repeated mention evokes a powerful image that refuses to be forgotten. Yet, the same theory has brought pain and division. Some families have accused its proponents of exploiting their tragedies, creating sensational narratives without substantial evidence. They argue that the focus on the smiley face killer detracts from real investigative efforts, potentially overshadowing other credible leads or explanations.